Dave, thanks so much for joining me. We had lunch together. You told me some principles that you have used in the industry as well as with soccer moms, as well as in the government, about leadership. Can you tell me more about those principles for all of us?
Sure, and you can include the church. It's a simple tool that's known as the in-basket. When I first discovered it, we were trying to deal with students on how they can incorporate decision-making processes on a consistent basis. It's a quite simple outline. First, it starts with you want to have a purpose. And a purpose is a more ethereal statement that allows one to suggest greater goals that they want to obtain, such as world peace, world hunger, those things. Followed by, then within that concept, setting up objectives. An objective is something that's measurable in units, such as time, dollars, human beings, widgets, but it's very measured in objectives. The next thing you want to do is, before you make any decision, gather as much background information as possible. So the first two you want to be able to express in one sentence and have consensus among the participants on what that one sentence is to solve world hunger. The second one, to solve all the hunger in Rwenzori, Kenya within the next 12 months, a project that's actual project that I'm working on. The third thing, in your background, all background should be those concepts and constructs and information that support your decision. Once you put those together, the next piece of the puzzle is, what alternatives do we face? Well, the one that most people neglect is doing nothing. So you have to think in one sentence, what would happen if we do nothing? So alternative number one is, if we do nothing, then, and fill in that blank in one sentence that you all have consensus on. Always have between 3 and 5 alternatives. You can have endless alternatives, so give yourself the project, the discipline of at least 3, but no more than 5. And the reason I say that is, number 5 would be, with unlimited resources, what can one do that will allow you to accomplish anything you can imagine? The final 2 steps are actually not 2 sentences, but you take 2 sentences connected with a semicolon, if-then. So it's a typical if-then clause. If we do number 3, the results will be. So again, to getting back to the point of doing alternatives, when you have alternatives, face them in the extreme. First, if we do nothing, or apply no resources, what will the outcome be? And we all agree on one sentence what that outcome will be. Number 2 is choose, if I have unlimited resources, meaning unlimited time, people, what would we do to obtain this initial objective, or the initial purpose within the objective? Next, from those 5 objectives, you're going to choose which one you recommend, and then, as a conclusion, what would happen if I do that recommendation? So let me go back through this. If you have a purpose, and the purpose, as an example, let me use Rwenzori, Kenya. There we chose, there were 9 tribal leaders and 5 of us here in Southern California who are looking at a way of funding what their needs for starving children were. And we came to the conclusion that our purpose had to be something short, succinct, that they could agree with. After less than 4 months, we came up with a very short purpose: to glorify God. We turned that purpose over to the tribal leaders in Rwenzori, and they were dealing with a myriad of different objectives, and we said, to be in sync with us, we only ask that what you propose be to glorify God. They came back and decided they would do this to glorify God, educate their children, have wells, have electricity, dig new toilet system, and on and on and on. And we said, that's what you want to do, as long as we can describe it to glorify God. So now we looked in, what were the measurable objectives? Well, first of all became getting children into school. So we set objectives, and the way we set objectives is by turning it to them. We don't know their needs. We couldn't establish their needs. We can only concur with their view, because otherwise we'd be imposing our view on what they're doing. So what came out of that is a quick background. We, in less than a year and a half, surpassed the Mormon Church and the Catholic Church, who had been working at this 15, I believe, and 25 years respectively, one of which had ended up with a large stone compound with concertina around it, which last year the students were going past to install latrines throughout the neighborhood. and they came out to find out why. The reason why, they set their own objectives to meet our purpose to
Yeah.
glorify God. So in all cases, it's working with people to understand what do they truly want, what objectives can we agree upon to measure, and then in one sentence each, how do we describe the alternatives we face? As you walk through this tool, the N-Basket, you'll discover that you'll be learning from the people part of the tools, because the tools you have are people, usually dollars, widgets, and the ideas that come from the combination of those different variables. So within that construct, if you are being interactive with it as opposed to forcing your ideas into the situation, you'll discover that you're learning as you go, which is always the best way to provide leadership. Each one of these steps you want to stop and have concurrence. So objective, well, it's only going to have meaning if you've addressed the purpose. So if you have your purpose, you have your objective, you've done your background search, now you go through each of those alternatives and write your recommendation and your conclusion in pencil. History or background, you can write in ink. Your objective, if you get your purpose right, then your objective will fill right in between the two. So use that with pencil and you don't need an eraser. So again, when you get to the very bottom, we've discovered in many, many classroom settings, in semester classes, or in literally in White House projects on environmental policy, we found that if you always keep an open mind to what your purpose is, not dilute your purpose, but keep an open mind to what it is, when you get down to your recommendation and then what the conclusion would be, because the recommendation is, if we do number 3, semicolon, the results will be, and you go back to your purpose. I have never, in over 45 years of using this tool, seen somebody end with their recommendation being the same as what they started out with. So their overall view of what their purpose is modified by bringing in the reality of other people's thinking or even one's own thinking. And I fully believe that the ultimate management system is one that personally I refer to as Theory Z. And I've been told there's others who have come to the same conclusion, used the same nomenclature. But the tool for Theory Z management to me is, again, the N-Basket outline, where if you have a common objective, you agree on how that objective addresses, if you have a common purpose, and you then address that purpose with your objective, and you can agree upon that objective, or in discussing it with the people, your objective gets better clarity. You can then smoothly go through the background information that it took to get to that point, go through each of the 3 to 5 alternatives as you go through, and then have a if-then clause. If we do number 3, then the conclusion will be what our purpose was.
Well, thank you, David. This has really been helpful.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to do it. It's been my pleasure.
Great.